Hey guys, welcome back to Tech Tanks. We're going to be going a different route with this video today. So far the channel is focused on CEH and ethical hacking as a whole, doing a lot of demonstrations and explanations and things like that. However, I do want this to be a overall kind of get started in technology type of channel. So we're actually going to move over to programming for the next few videos. I will be posting more hacking videos later. Um, Today we're going to be focusing on C Sharp, just kind of getting introduced to that. It was one of the first languages that I learned how to use pretty effectively. So for me, it seems to be a good one to get started with. However, Python is a fantastic one, so we'll be making videos on that one later. We're going to go ahead and get started. I do have my Windows hacking system pulled up here, but this will work for what we're going to do today. The IDE, or Integrated Development Environment, I will be using is Visual Studio 2022. The reason I switched over to 2022 is I was tired of Windows yelling at me that 2019 is outdated. So, whatever. You can download this by simply going to Microsoft. You can get the Community Edition completely free. Um, yeah, so let's go ahead and get this started. Today, what we're going to be starting with is a console application. This is usually the best way to get started on any kind of new programming language, is stick to the consoles. Reason for that is when you start introducing a GUI, you start introducing event handlers and things like that, and it just gets pretty complicated pretty dang quickly. So we're going to start with a basic console application. So if you're following along, we're going to just go to create a new project, and we're actually going to do a .NET framework console. So if you just type in console in the search bar, you'll see it right here. Okay, so we'll just do the console app.NET framework. Next, name it whatever you want. I'm going to just leave mine as console app 1 because I'm not keeping this file once we're done with it. You can just have it go to the default location if you want, or if you have a specific thing. On my main computer, I actually have a separate drive that is actually called programming. That's where I save all mine. Whatever works for you. So let me go ahead. We're going to create that. It takes a moment to kind of get the environment all set up and everything. And we're going to be focusing today mostly on knowing enough to start writing some pretty basic applications. All right. So if you are an experienced programmer, if you have, even a pretty, okay foundation, you probably aren't going to want to stick to this video very long because you're probably going to be past it. But what we're going to go ahead and do here is get going. So I will explain all of this stuff in other videos when it becomes more relevant, um, but it's not going to be relevant here. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just leave it all alone. What I will explain for you, though, the whole classing, C# is an object-oriented programming language. Basically, what that means is the foundations of the language when you're making an application is you make classes of various things. All right, when you make a class, you can make inheriting classes and so on and so forth. The best way I can explain it, because every time it was explained to me when I was first learning this, it just always confused me. If you're familiar with a game like Diablo or Skyrim, right? Any of these things where you have various classes of character types. Each of these classes has different attributes and things like that, default starts and that sort of thing. So a way that you could program that in this sort of setup is you have the main class of, we'll just say character. And then the character has basic attributes such as a name, um, maybe appearances or something along those lines, right? Basically, it's like everybody shares this. And then you can go into a subclass which inherits from the first one, which at that point you would determine it's like, oh, I'm playing a wizard character. Well, the wizard has, high levels of mana, low health, little armor, so on and so forth. You can set those defaults in the subclasses. Okay. We will get more into this later because there are terms like polymorphism, You have static classes and so on and so forth. We will get into all that. Right now, what I want you guys to focus on is just getting your first application going. And we are going to start with the default application. That technically, this is supposed to be your first application every single time. So we're going to learn a quick function just so we can knock this out of the way. We're going to type out console.WriteLine. And I'm a little worried you guys won't be able to see that. Hold on. Bam. All right. Yeah, you can read that now. All right. So we're going to just type console.WriteLine. And in double quotations, you're going to put hello world. Okay. Now, if you're anything like me, if you dabbled in Python or anything like that, you've already done a hello world application. This is kind of the official startup of your journey when it comes to programming. You're supposed to do a hello world. If we go ahead and go to the very top here and click on start, if it ends up doing a drop down, just click on the button that says start itself. Again, we're going to go over all the pretty little details and all that later. The first time you build an application, it might take some time. Oh. If your system does what mine does, just go ahead and do this. Readline. We'll just do that. Okay. I'll explain that in just a second. So if you do that, it'll actually stay open this time. So we get hello world. Okay. We just basically output text to the console window. Yippee. Okay, now we got that out of the way. The reason why we did console.readline is because when you provide instructions to an application, the compiler are going to follow the instructions. It's going to execute the program as you instruct it to do so. What we instructed was output hello world, and that was the end of it. So it output hello world, then it closed the application because we're done. Now, if that did not happen to you, most likely you are not running in the .NET framework. You are just doing a console application in C#, and you are actually running on the .NET Core. All right, which for what we're doing here is probably going to be fine. I don't believe you will have any issues that I can think of off the top of my head, so you can just stay where you're at and you're fine. And you won't have to do the console.readline. What the readline does is it actually tells or it's waiting for user input at that point. So all I did at the end is you can press enter and it will close the application because now it's accepted your input. It has no further instructions. Okay, so let's cover basics, and I'm going to try to make this video enough to where you can start writing some basic programs. Rock, paper, scissors, for example. There's going to be more efficient ways to do it, but you can at least make like a rock, paper, scissors game. If you're anything like me, you're going to make a game, or you're going to make some kind of application. Then I'll ask somebody for their name, and you'll play a little joke on a friend where when they put in their name, it tells them they're an idiot or something fun like that. Anyway, so we're going to cover first data types. Okay, this is pretty important. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave the console.readline there because I don't want to have to keep typing it out. So we're actually going to use that later, and I'll show you how to use it. But anyway, there are, let's see, 6 or 7 data types that I'm going to be, or no, 6 data types and one. I'm going to teach you guys the neutral data type is what I like to call it, the unknown. But we're going to go over those 6 data types because they are going to be your most common, especially starting off, and you're going to use them frequently. So let's go ahead and cover some of them real quick. So the first one we're going to cover is int. Okay, now this is, as you could probably guess, short for integer. Basically, it stores whole numbers from, it's ridiculously high. What is it? It's something like 2 billion, or yeah, 2 billion 100 something million, so on and so forth, all the way up to, so it goes from negative 2 billion 100 something million to 2 billion 100 something million. So it's a ridiculously large number. I don't think I have ever had to not use int. Like the next one up is long. I have never had to go above that. But I mean, it's good to know the different data types just in case. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna give you the we're gonna make a note here. So to make a note, you just do 2 slashes like that, and it'll go green. That's how you know it's going to be a note. So int is equal to, I pulled it up here for you. So it is 2,147,483,648, and it goes to 2,147,483,000. Whoops, and 647. Okay, so I mean this is a huge range of numbers. Um, Again, I've never really had to go over it, but hey, never know. I am not a programmer by profession, so perhaps actual programmers will use it all the time. All right, the next one is a long, and this one, this is bigger. So the reason why some of this is relevant is because it is actually the amount of space it takes up in your RAM. Okay, sorry, I'm pausing this here. Oh, it's 36. See, I knew I got that wrong. 854,775,808. So, and then it goes to the positive of the same number. Okay. Let me make another note here real quick. So this actually takes up 4 bytes of data in your RAM, and this will take up 8 bytes of data in your RAM. Okay. So that's where it starts becoming relevant. Now this was really critical before, depending on how old you are. I remember having a computer where our RAM was very much so measured in megabytes. Okay, so this was the dark ages of computers where RAM usage was a precious resource, and programmers had to keep that in mind because most people could not run, um, high levels or high demand applications when it came to RAM. Nowadays, I mean, the laptop that I'm currently working on right now has 32 gigabytes. Right, so you could throw a long in pretty much every integer you're going to be using, and my computer will be able to handle it in the RAM. So that's what this is for, and for the most part, you're going to use int. Very rarely will you use long. So yeah, there you go. Now, of course, we do have float, which this is a decimal number that can store 6 to 7 decimal digits. So basically, this is where you're going to start doing things like that, right? Naturally, we do have a bigger one, which is double, and this one can hold 15 decimal digits, right? So this would be, if you're doing something ridiculously long, pi or something like that, there you go. We are going to, of course, cover our bool. This is short for Boolean. This holds one of 2 values, true or false. That is it. All right, bool is used a lot, so get familiar with it. Char is a single character. So, and the reason why I emphasize character is because this can be a 1, to 9, or it could be a, anything like that. So any kind of character, a single character, that would be where you use char. String is a sequence of characters. Okay, now this is, think sentences, right? Singe. There we go, single character. So it is, this one would be used with double quotes, and this is a string, right? So you saw that example when we did hello world. Okay, now one thing that I want to clarify, especially if you have ever worked like in C, I believe C++ as well. It's been a long time since I've done that one. But if you worked with the other types of C language, this is a string of characters. All right, so you can treat a string like an array of characters. We'll get into that later, but just keep that in mind, okay? Because that's one thing that threw me off when I was getting my degree in software development. When they would say like, "Oh, break apart your string into different characters," and I didn't quite understand because I kept thinking of it as a completely different data type. It is not. This is just an array of this. If you do not know what an array is, we're going to go over it in another video, so don't stress it. Okay, but these are the main character types you're going, or data types you're going to be using. But I do want to introduce one more. Sorry, I went too far and I didn't comment it, which is var, which this is unknown. So a var variable can basically resolve into any variable. It is determined what kind of variable it is going to be based on the data fed into it, right? The value. So you can feed an int, long, float, double, bool, char, string, doesn't matter. Var will become that data type, okay? And I will demonstrate that in a moment. Okay, so these are the big things you need to know. So we're going to start working with these a little bit. We're going to just kind of output them so you can kind of see how they're going to be, like you're going to look at, or you're going to learn how to initialize a variable, and then you're also going to kind of see how to put it all together to make these variables happen. So in C#, you have to declare your variable type. So I'm going to make an int, and I'm going to just call this num, and I'm going to say it equals 1. Okay? And so I now have a variable called num stored in memory that has the value of 1. Okay? So there you go. It's done. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to go ahead and just console.write, and we're going to just put num. Okay? We'll get to this part in a moment. For now, let's just see it output the number 1. 1. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there you go, 1. So we have that. Now we're going to go ahead and make, with the next one, we're going to do long, and we're going to put long num equals 4.5. Now, you might be wondering, why isn't this working? Because I made a mistake, that's why. There we go. Sorry, I thought we were jumping over to float or to double. So long num, we got that. And so with all of these, with the numbers and bool, they're all pretty much declared the same way. So if we do float, you gotta love when it hops in there. So there we go, float num, and then we're going to do. Okay, there we go. That's the error I was trying to get. So it's like, well, why isn't this working? Because when you're declaring a float, you actually have to, oops, why did that not work? Where is it? There we go. You have to go ahead and provide it with you need to end the value with an F. And the reason for it is to just it kind of confirms that this is a floating number, okay? And with double, you actually do it a little differently. Whoops, 1.0, what the, do. Okay, you're gonna end it with a D, okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and finish the rest of these. So we're gonna do bool, and then we're gonna just call this bool val. We're gonna say true. Okay, so that's all that one is, and you could obviously switch this to false as well. Either one is fine. So char val going to equal, sure, we'll do a. Why not? All right, and then string. Sure, why not? And then we're going to do this as a test. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to go over the green squiggly lines here in a moment. And then we're going to do var. And I'm actually not going to initialize this variable. I'm going to show you a different way to do this. So we're going to just call this varval. And we're going to just hit semicolon. And we're going to, or I'm sorry, no, we're not. Can't do that here. Then we're going to do testing. Okay. I was going to try to do something, but I'll have to show you later on another way to initialize. So there we go. Now the reason these green squiggly lines are showing up is this is your IDE saying, hey, there's something going on here. There's a warning, right? And if you click down here, it'll tell you the variable warnings, which a warning means that there's not an error. It will compile, it will work. But in this case, it's basically stating, hey, you're wasting memory. You've called, or you've initialized this, you made it, it's assigned, but you're not using it, right? And you can get that down here. And if you just hold your mouse over it, it tells you in very, very tiny little font that even I'm struggling to see that the variable long num is assigned, but its value is never used. Okay, so the reason why it's doing that is because we've never used it, but we can just kind of start doing this, and we're going to see another error pop up, but I just want to show that this goes away. So see, now the green goes away, and we're good to go. And we can just keep adding this in, so on and so forth. But right now we're not going to do that because I want to do it a different way. So we're going to do Readline, and you'll see why I chose to do this in a moment. So we're going to do num, and then we're going to do another one, just because I want you guys to kind of see how the instructions line up. Long num, console dot, whoops, right line, float num. Okay, and then just assume that the double num, I mean, it's going to basically look the same. So we're going to move on. Console dot right line, and then we're going to do bool val. Perfect. Console dot right line. And then this is where I'm going to show you something here. Char val. Okay. So here we're going to just do console dot right, and then I'm going to put str val. And then I'm going to do console dot right var val. Seriously. When you see red, that means there's an error. So, okay, we got all this. We skipped double num because, like I said, it's going to be the same. But I want you to pay attention to string val, which is this is a test, and then var val, which is testing. Okay, we're going to show you what happens. There's going to be a lot to unpack here, so I'm hoping. You know what? Let me try something. If the view gets just god awful, I apologize. Let's do that. Ooh, that was fun. How's that showing up? Okay, that should be better. Okay, so if you notice, we have 145, 4.584, true, A, and this is a testing. Okay, so a couple things to unpack here. Notice that true is currently capitalized. Okay, not overly relevant, but just understand that what we're feeding it is that Boolean is binary. It's either a 1 or a 0, it's a true or it's false. That's not necessarily the output that it's going to provide, or the result that it's going to end up carrying. And I'll show you how to use a Boolean value in a moment. But here, where we did console.write, it doesn't provide any kind of spacing or new line or anything like that. There are various things you can do that we'll go over in another video when we're more focused on manipulating the output. Okay, but it's currently waiting for input, so I'm going to just press enter, and gone away. All right, now because this is starting to hurt my head, I am going to zoom back out, but when we go to the output again, I will zoom back in for you guys. There we go. Okay, so at this point, you've learned how to make a variable, and you got a pretty basic idea of how to put it in here, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to come back to the Boolean one in a moment. Currently, we're going to focus on strings, okay? And we're going to work on writing output and then reading input and assigning it to a variable, okay? The reason why I want to do this is because when we're done with this video, I want you to be able to do something basic to kind of work on and get started with. All right, understand the instructions. You're going to get errors. You might get errors as you're doing stuff, and I want you to, figure out from there what you did wrong. But you'll have enough information to at least get something going. So I'll leave this comment here so that way you guys can keep looking at it. But we're going to go ahead and do string name, and then we're going to end it like that. Okay. And then we're going to do console.write. Oh boy, right? I kind of don't like what they've done here. This is a little bit different than 2019. All right, and then we're going to put what is your name? Question mark. And then I'm going to put a space. Now the reason why I put a space, the best way I can describe this is computers are stupid, ridiculously stupid. Okay? And you need to provide every little snippet of instruction in order for it to follow. It is going to take what you say or what you code literally, okay, to a ridiculously literal level. The problem that comes with that is if you make a simple, tiny little mistake, it can screw up your entire visual. So what I want here is I want there to be a space between the question and where the user starts typing in. So I put it in here, okay? Then I'm going to hit semicolon. Every command in C# ends with a semicolon, without fail. If you don't put it in, you get a little red X right here, which you can go to your error list, and it'll, nice thing is it even tells you, hey, this is expected, right? Now, if you happen to not see the red squiggly line, you happen to not see the error, when you try to build your program, okay, it fails. It won't work anymore. If you go to run, it won't work, okay? So, FYI. So there we go, got that in there. Now, I'm asking what is the name, and then we're going to do name equals console.readline, like that, okay? Now, what this is basically stating is, hey, read the rest of the line, and I want you to put it into this string variable, okay? Now, keep in mind, with a string, it can hold numbers, it can hold letters, it can hold characters, it can hold a single character, it could hold a lot of characters of any kind. So no matter what gets put in here, for the most part, they're going to be fine, okay? With that being said, there are some issues that come with this, and I'll explain it in a moment. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next is console.write. I'm going to show you this part where we do \n. Okay, that tells it to put it at a new line, and then we can say hello space plus that, and then you could put name plus that. Nice to meet you! Exclamation point. Bam. Okay, let me go ahead and explain what this is. And by the way, there are multiple ways to do this. This is not the only way. It's not necessarily the best way. Okay, this is just the most basic way. All right. So what I wanted to show you here was the new line. Okay, what this backslash does is it escapes. All right, so there is a problem with strings, which is if you wanted to, say we wanted to quote over here, right? Nice to air quote meet you. Right, the moment I do this, right, now all of a sudden we're getting multiple errors, okay? So the reason why that's happening is because quotes designate when the string starts and ends. You can stop that from happening by escaping it. And so now it will put air quotes on the output. Now it's not part of our thing here, so we're going to go ahead and take it out. But what an end does, followed by, or when an end follows a backslash like this, that tells the compiler, put this on a new line, right? So even though we use the write function twice, we're still going to be putting this on a new line. So let's go ahead and launch this, and I will zoom in for you. Squiggly. All right. So it says, what is your name? My name is OpfuCypher. Enter. Then it says, hello, OpfuCypher. Nice to meet you. Sweet. And the reason why I waited is because we still have another read line right here that we're not really doing anything with. So, all right, let's go back out. Okay, so you now know how to do input. All right, now I said that this could result in a bit of an issue. What I'm going to suggest is to stick with just doing strings for now, or even characters is fine, right? But the reason why you want to do that is because this takes in a string, right? That is what it does. It assigns it to a string. So let's try something different. Hold on. So let's do it this way. So we're going to do console. Oh boy, console dot right line. Oh my goodness. How old are you? All right, and I'm going to switch this to Readline also, so that way it doesn't get all crammed. Okay. So we're going to do a how old are you, and then we're going to say int age equals console dot readline. But we get an error. Why do we get an error? What it says here is it cannot implicitly convert type string to int. This is bringing in a string, right? You cannot assign a string to an integer variable type. Cannot be done. Okay. Now you can assign an integer, like you can assign integers to a string though. All right. And what I mean by that, I'm going to show you. So I'm going to switch this to string and call it age, right? Something that's going to work. We're going to go ahead and nice to meet you. You are, oh boy, you are, do plus age plus space years old. Cool. All right, so we're going to run this again, and we will zoom in to make sure that there's no issues seeing. I had somebody at one point state that they had a hard time viewing the screen. So I do have this running on 1080 system now, but I want to make sure. All right, so OpView Cipher, how old are you? We'll say I'm 20. Nice to meet you, you are 20 years old. So you saw this worked just fine. I used numerical values and I applied it to a string, right? So what's the issue here? Well, the issue is when we have numbers, we typically want to use the numbers for what they are, right? So view, okay. So what do we want to do with numbers? Adding, subtracting, so on and so forth. Now I'm not going to get into a whole lot of math operation right now, but console dot, I do want to show you something real quick. Right line, oh boy, in 10 years you will be blank, and then we do age plus 10. Sorry, let's do. That work? Everybody happy? Okay. So, and one thing is C# is a pretty smart language. It's been a long time. Oh, there's build errors. What's the problem? Oh, that was foolish. Sorry. C# is or using Visual Studio and all that. It's pretty smart on fixing your stupid mistakes. So I'm gonna be a little embarrassed if it ends up working. Same 20. Aha, see 2010. I will be 2010 years old. I'm gonna have to pause you guys for just a moment. And so, sorry guys, I had to pause that for a moment. So right here, notice it says 2010 years old because in a string, when you do this adding, it's called concatenating. All right, sorry. In case there's an issue with the view. And after today, I won't have this kind of question because I'm going to watch this video afterward and know. But it says right here that in 10 years, I'll be 2010 years old. The math doesn't add up, right? So what ends up happening is when you concatenate a string, you are adding it to the previous, like you are adding one part to the next part, but it's not actually adding together, right? So that's what it's doing here, is it's treating both of them as though they're strings and doing it that way, okay? So that's where the issue comes up, having a string to represent your numbers. This is the right way to handle it, all right? Or you need to deal with the string at some point is the way to look at it, but there are ways to convert it, okay? I'm not going to go over that now, but just know that, yes, this is the right way to get a number in a console, right? And in the next video, we're going to look at casting and things like that, okay? So the last thing that I wanted to go over, because I've basically given you what you need to be able to put output, read input, assign it to a variable, and I even showed you can initiate a variable at the time of getting the input. Okay, all that works. All right, now the last thing I wanted to show you as your kind of like your final intro is doing an if statement, right? And then you have else, if, else statements. I don't know how they classify them, but basically I'm going to show you three if statements, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to just put in int num equals 5, okay? So what we're going to do is if, put this in, num is greater than 2, console.writeline, awesome, okay? Else if num is less than 2, we're going to do console.writeline, sweet. I don't know why I'm putting this out, guys. I just don't know what else to put. And then the last one we're going to do is else console.writeline the best. Okay. So let's talk about what this is doing here, okay? So because we have a lot going on. What this part right here is looking for is a Boolean value. That's what gets output here, okay? So the question, basically the structure of this is if num is greater than 2, true, execute this. If it is false, then you can come down to here. Else if, right? So this is connected to this. And if you click on, I believe if you click on any one of these, it shows you, yeah, it'll show you all three of the others. So when I click on this, Visual Studio highlights all three of them because it's saying, hey, these three are connected. All right, and that's relevant because there are lots of different ways to do an if statement, okay? But if the first one is not valid, else if num is less than 2, console writeline, sweet. If neither of these are true, right, if anything else happens, this is what you do. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, nothing else can happen. You are wrong. What I'm stating is greater than 2 or less than 2, this is where you're at. What I have not stated at any point is what if it does equal 2, right? So this statement right here is basically the same as saying, oops, it is the same as saying, why is this not taking my, stupid. I'm having a moment, guys. This is basically the same as saying if num, oh man, is equal to 2, the rest of the code, right? So that's what this statement is basically doing right here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 5 and we're going to run it, and it should output awesome. All right. Hopefully you can see awesome. If not, this one's just not worth zooming in and out for. We're going to change this to 1, and now it should output sweet. Sweet. All right. And then the last one is what if it equals 2? Okay. Now it should output the best. Okay. So these are if statements, else if, and else. Now, I don't want there to be any confusion. I don't want anybody leaving comments going, well, you didn't represent the if statements correctly, you didn't, and all that. This is the standard basic format of it. All right. Now, by the way, Visual Studio may kick it like this. This is fine. Okay. It does not matter. It does not matter if there's a space here or not. Okay. Just white space stuff. C# really doesn't care about white space, but with the if statements, they can get extremely complex. And for that reason, I don't want to dive too much into them. But yes, you can put an if statement inside of an if statement. Okay. You can do, instead of doing if, else if, you can check for multiple parameters. Okay. So an example would be if I were to remove this else statement, right? And I were to put this as the number, it's less than 10. Then I change this to, but it could be awesomer, right? And then I put this number back to 5. Okay, what this is basically doing, this does a few things. Notice it all of a sudden doesn't highlight these 3 together anymore. This one is now a standalone if statement. Okay, once I did this, these are no longer connected. It's going to check this and it's going to check this. However, these two are now connected because there is an else statement here, right? So we're not going to worry about the else statement. We're going to just go ahead and get rid of that at the moment. Okay, so we have 2 standalone if statements, and then we're going to go ahead and press start, and we should get awesome, but it could be awesomer, right? It checks them separately. So what else if does is it keeps them connected. It will check one, then it checks the other, then it checks the other. If you skip the else if you just put if and then another if statement, it's checking both. Okay, to nest the if statements, which is when you put an if statement inside of an if statement, you would just put it in your code block right here in between the 2 curly brackets. Okay, so instead of console write line awesome, you'd put an if statement, or you do awesome and then you do another if statement, right? So you can nest them if you want, and that is done quite frequently. So give it a shot. Just remember that the deeper it gets, it can get really complicated. So start simple for yourself. All right. Now, where is this relevant? Well, let's do. I think I saw a video one time. I think it was from Code Academy. They did like a basic calculator. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do something like that. We're going to do int num1, int num2, and then we're going to do console.write. And I'm going to go ahead and just use write so that way you can kind of get an idea of how this can be used. So welcome to the adder. New line. Provide the first number. And then I'm going to close it. Then I'll do num1. Oh. All right. Yeah. All right. So I just realized I'm going to have to change the types and all that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Why not? So I'm not going to explain it too much because, like I said, I will cover it in another video. I just want to show you using if statements and things like that. So we'll do subtractor as well because that would require the if statement. And then we're going to put char, and then we're just going to call it operator. Oh, I can't. I'll call him oper. Sure. All right. So we'll do num1 is equal to, and this is one of the methods in which you can convert a string into an integer. Console.readline. Again, I will cover this in detail on another video. You're welcome to follow along. This is not a great way to do it because it can easily break the application. Fair warning. You've been told. Console.write. And then we're going to do, what is the second number? Boom. And then we're going to do num2, and we're literally going to do the exact same thing. Parse console.readline. Okay, so we now have our integers stored. And then the last thing we're going to put here is console.write. Would you, oh boy, would you like to add? And then we're going to give the indicator on how to do that, or subtract. Consistency is key, people. All right, and then we'll do this. And then the last thing we're going to do is char, or whoops, upper. This is going to be a fun one. Console.readline. Okay, and it's like, wait, why is that causing a problem? Because this is a string. That doesn't work either. Ooh, that's right. I'll have to go over that one later because I really don't want to get into the converting of it. Simple change right here. We'll just make it a string and it's fine. Okay. Like I said, we're going to cover conversions in depth in another video. I don't want to go too much into it now. So, and then what we're going to do is if then we're going to do upper is equal to a. Then we're going to do console. Oh, actually, we'll do this. We'll do int result equals num1 plus num2. Bam. Okay. And then we can do console dot write. Yeah. We're going to do this and then do result. Okay. If the operator equals a, and oh, if you are comparing, it's a double equals, right? If you are assigning, it's a single equal, FYI. So, and then we're going to do else if, and then we're going to do operator is equal to s. And then we're going to do, this time I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Console write. And then we're going to do plus. Oops. Then we're going to do num1 plus num2. I think that'll work. Should work. Could be wrong. We'll find out. It'll be fun. I'm not ashamed of having boo-boos on these videos. So when you're kind of going back to the basics like this, it kind of throws you off because I do just a lot of casting and conversions, things like that. So a little different. All right, so last thing we're going to do here is do an else statement. Why are we doing an else statement? Because I'm not validating what the user's putting in. So if they didn't put one of those in, right line, you're an idiot. There. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom in before I start it. There we go. And then we're going to do start. All right, provide the first number, 5. What is the second number? 10. Add or subtract? A. 15. Yay. All right, let's run it again. 5, 10, S. 15. You want to know why? Because I'm an idiot. I added that. Stupid ass. Sorry, bad word. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on YouTube, but I did. So let's try this again. So we're going to do 5, 15, subtract -10. It works. Now, for thoroughness, I'm going to show you a couple things. So we're going to keep this working, and then we're going to put P. You're an idiot. Okay. Why? Because I did tell it that if it's not an A or an S, do this, right? Anything else, do that. Now, here's where we're going to break it. Put an F. And now it's hung up. And now it's crying. All right, we got a input string was not in the correct format, which is why I said this is not a great way to do it. It really is not. Okay, this is how you break applications. It's fun, it's a good time for everyone, and this will be the bane of your existence as you are learning your programming. Okay, so we will get into that later. There is a great way to do this, right? There are secure ways to make applications. I'm sure every single one of us at one point or another has clicked on some or put in input where all of a sudden we get like red letters on the screen going, hey, what are you doing? You can't do that, right? There are ways to do checks. All right, so we will cover it. In the next video, we are probably going to go over switch statements and then also try-catch statements. All right, which try-catch statements will help with this. All right, it's not a guarantee, but we'll also probably cover loops, right? Because once you have loops, try-catch statements, if statements, and your variables down, there's a lot of options on what you can do. Switch statements are okay. I don't use them very often, but they're out there, right? They're not bad. So we're going to do that. So the next couple videos I make are probably going to fall into the category of programming, and then we'll do a hacking video, and then we'll just kind of bounce around. So guys, I hope you did enjoy this video. Thanks for watching, and if you have any suggestions, as always, leave a comment under the video. Like button. I guess I'm supposed to ask people to press that, so yeah, go press. Thanks, guys.